Hey, so glad you're a part of Launch. In this video, we're going to be talking about minimal factors for a disciple-making environment. Now, this is a very important part of what we're trying to train you and how we want to teach you when it comes to launching a youth ministry, because we want you to be a disciple maker. That's what you want as well. So let me give you three minimal factors, right? Think of this almost like the recipe per se, and you need to have each of these ingredients in the recipe. I'll give them all to you up front, and then we'll talk about each one of them for just a couple minutes. So it's going to take time, it's going to take people, and then it's going to take intentionality. So let's talk about time. First encouragement to you when it comes to a disciple-making environment is it takes time. In all honesty, it's going to take more time than what you probably or what I actually want. Disciple-making takes time. It's going to take your time, and it will take time. So here's one of the number one rules that I've always had in youth ministry in regards to students, and it's this: he who spends the most time wins. And so as you are endeavoring to create a disciple-making environment in your ministry, in your youth ministry, it's going to take time, and it's going to take your time spent with students. This is true for was true for Jesus as well, right? Jesus took time. He took 3 years, with his disciples. By the way, Jesus didn't even bat 1,000 either. He had some that actually didn't come through for him, right? But it takes time. And so we have to come into youth ministry with this understanding of this is a process. This is an everyday, every week, every month process where I'm giving my time, and it takes time to see growth, right? It can be really frustrating at times. It can be really slow at times. And when you get frustrated, when it feels like it's taking too much time, then there's a temptation that you and I have to look for the quick fix, right? To look for something that will produce the quick result per se, to look for, the numbers or the data or the metrics somewhere that just kind of is like that, yes, we did it. I just want to encourage you, enter into this process of launching a youth ministry, knowing upfront, this is going to take time. There's no shortcuts to this. There's no quick fix to discipleship. There's no easy ABC, 1, 2, 3. It just happens overnight. Just plug and play, teach these lessons, or go on this trip, or hit this event here, and boom, it just happens. I guess the way I'm trying to say it is like there's no chia pet growth when it comes to discipleship, right? It just simply takes your time, and it takes time. And if you get into a rush to see results, and if you feel like this sense of like, I don't have the time, and we just got to make this happen, and we have to rush, usually that temptation and usually our desire to rush things becomes counterproductive to the overall process of discipleship. So number one ingredient here, it takes time. Secondly, it takes people, right? It takes you. It takes me. It takes relationships. I often have defined youth ministry like this. When you strip away things like a youth service, trips, events, programs, things like that, when you strip all that away and you ask the question, what is youth ministry? I just simply define it like this. Youth ministry is when a godly adult builds a relationship with a student for the purpose of discipleship. So that means then it's impossible for disciple making to actually take place without a person, right? It takes a person. This is true of Jesus as well, right? Jesus models this for us. He has initially his 12 disciples, and he's building relationship with them. Again, it took time, 3 years, but Jesus is the person who is actually investing in them. It's almost like there's this spiritual transference or spiritual DNA that takes place from one to another. So when we talk about people, and it takes people, we have to ask the question, who's the person, right? Who are we looking for? Who is the godly adult that can disciple students? And so let me define it like this. That is a person who is mature, and that is a person who's willing to do what it takes to make disciples. And as you look around in your church or in your ministry, you might come to the conclusion, I don't have a lot of those kind of people, right? You might be the only one. And I just want to say to you, that's great. Jesus was the only one initially, right? So you're in great company here. And if you're the only one you got, then be that person. Take the time, add in you as the person, and begin to create a disciple-making environment, right? So it takes time. It takes people. You might just be all by yourself. That's okay. And remember that at its core, youth ministry is a godly adult building a relationship with a student. So, number 3, intentionality. So it's going to take time. It's going to take people. It's going to take intentionality. So what do I mean by intentionality? Discipleship has to be your primary focus. It is easy in youth ministry. There are so many different ideas. There are so many different programs. There are so many different resources that you can find online, and that you can, try this and try this. You can experiment with all sorts of different things in youth ministry. And as you're launching, right, we just want to drive into your heart this philosophy that I'm going to be intentional about disciple making, about discipleship. This is going to be your first and number one priority in your youth ministry as you launch, is the intentionality of disciple making. It's the primary focus. So what does that mean? That means that your time, that your talent, that your treasure, right? The church's time, talent, and treasure, it's all devoted to that chief aim. And again, I talked about this earlier when I said, it takes time, and sometimes we want to rush the process. And when we want to rush the process, we can give in to the temptation to, abandon spending time building relationships with students for other things. The same thing can happen here with intentionality. We can jump in or jump away from discipleship, I should say. And you can just say, well, discipleship is just another element. It's just one thing that we do. It's just one of many things that we do. And I just want to encourage you, don't take that approach. Take the approach of, this is our main focus. It's going to be disciple making. It's going to be discipleship. Why is that important? Because discipleship requires your focus. It requires intentionality. It requires a little bit of even intensity on your part to say, this is the primary thing that we do in our youth ministry, is create disciples, right? So never think of discipleship as an add-on. Never think of it as another program out there. Never think of it as just one of many things that you do. Look at discipleship as this is the main thing that we do. So what are your ingredients again, right? What are the necessary ingredients for a disciple-making environment? You need time, right? You need people, and you need intentionality, right? So think of it again as like a recipe for something that you're making in the kitchen. And if you don't have all the right ingredients, it's not going to turn out the way that you would like it to turn out. That's exactly how I want you to think, how we want you to think about discipleship as you're launching your youth ministry, and that we want to come into this with a balanced and healthy perspective, understanding what's going to be required, what are the necessary ingredients. We want to create and launch a youth ministry that's primary focus is disciple making. What are the ingredients for that? Time, people, and intentionality.